Everyone talks about Cleopatra. Meanwhile, Nefertiti built a kingdom, launched a god, and possibly ruled alone while raising 6 daughters and starting a cult. But sure, let's keep calling her just a queen. The girl with no origins. Let's get one thing straight. Nobody knows where Nefertiti came from. There's no written record, no temple inscription. Just a girl who appeared beside the crown and never stepped away. Some say she was the daughter of a high-ranking court official named A. Others think she was foreign, maybe Syrian. Her name means, "the beautiful one has come," which sounds suspiciously like someone who just showed up. Like she walked into the palace one day and said, "I live here now." There's no mention of her before she marries Amenhotep IV, later known as Akhenaten. That's already weird. Royal women were usually introduced with fanfare. Nefertiti? Nothing. No fancy titles. No priestess role. No connection to the old royal bloodline. Either she had zero pedigree, or someone erased it. But here's what we do know. Around 1350 BCE, during Egypt's 18th dynasty, this mystery girl married the king in waiting. He was young. She was young. The ink was still wet on the dynasty's drama scroll. And just like that, she became the great royal wife. Then things escalated. She wasn't just standing beside Akhenaten. She was shown smiting enemies, riding in chariots, and throwing sacred offerings like a boss. Ancient Egyptian art didn't do that for arm candy. It did that for people who mattered. She had 6 daughters with him, no sons. That didn't stop her from showing up in every temple wall like she owned the place. Statues of her were carved full size, same scale as the king. That wasn't normal. Queens didn't get that kind of visual billing. Nefertiti did. She also had a long name change. Subtle? No. Political? Definitely. It tied her directly to the sun god Aten, who would soon replace every other god in the country. So by year 4 of Akhenaten's reign, Nefertiti wasn't just a royal wife. She was becoming something else, something Egypt hadn't seen before. A woman with no known past, now walking into temples like she built them. Which, later, she actually might have. Welcome to ancient history's biggest case of who let her in and how did she end up running everything. Married to the heretic king. Amenhotep IV didn't marry a background character. He married the main event. When he took Nefertiti as his great royal wife, he wasn't just picking a queen. He was bringing in a co-commander for a full-blown religious coup. At first, he played nice. Followed the usual pharaoh script. Prayed to Amun. Wore the right crowns. Checked the boxes. But behind all that tradition, the guy was plotting a full spiritual mutiny. He was obsessed with Aten, the literal sun disk, and he wasn't quiet about it. And Nefertiti? She didn't just support it, she ran straight toward it. From the beginning, she was in every major scene. Same size as the king, same posture, same divine rays hitting her face. Ancient Egyptian art didn't do that for consorts. It did that for rulers, and Nefertiti was already acting like one. While Amenhotep started drifting from the old gods, Nefertiti jumped ahead. Some carvings show her making offerings alone. That's a job for a priest or a pharaoh, not a queen. Unless, of course, that queen is rewriting the job description as she goes. They had 6 daughters together. No sons. The girls, Meritaten, Meketaten, Ankhesenpaten, later Tutankhamun's wife, Neferuaten Tasherit, Neferuwe, and Setapenre. For a dynasty obsessed with male heirs, this should have been a problem. But Nefertiti stayed in charge of public rituals, royal appearances, and palace politics. No heir? No problem. Amenhotep IV tossed the whole religious establishment. He closed Amun's temples, moved royal worship to Aten, and even changed his name to Akhenaten. Nefertiti followed suit, renaming herself Neferuaten Nefertiti. Perfect are the beauties of Aten. That wasn't a name, that was a billboard. Together, they launched a national faith reboot. Aten worship became state policy, and Nefertiti's presence in art exploded. She's not bowing, she's not hiding, she's out front, ruling with him, or possibly over him. Oh, and about that blue crown? The one from the famous Berlin bust? That wasn't fashion, that was power. It's a war crown, and she wore it like she had enemies to crush. This wasn't a queen playing pretend. This was a woman elbowing her way into Egypt's top job, right next to a king who was about to burn 2,000 years of gods to the ground. The Godswa. Around year 5 of Akhenaten's reign, the gods got fired. All of them. Amun, Osiris, Thoth, Hathor, every last one was kicked out of the state religion, replaced by a giant sun disk. It had no face, no mythology, just rays shaped like tiny hands reaching down. Aten wasn't new, but Akhenaten gave it a full upgrade. He wasn't worshipping through the sun anymore. Now, he said the sun was the god. Period. No priests, no middlemen, just Aten, the king, and Nefertiti. If you wanted sunlight, you had to go through them. Nefertiti wasn't just along for the ride. She helped sell this madness. In wall art, she's performing sacrifices, smashing enemies, and throwing out blessings, like a living sunbeam. Her body language screams authority. She's not behind the king, she's next to him. Sometimes instead of him. Together, they treated Aten like a jealous rock star. Only one spotlight, and they stood in it. The royal couple became the literal bridge between the people and the god. Everyone else? Just background noise. Even high priests were sidelined. And the temples? Looted, shut down, or stripped for building materials. They built new open-air shrines with no roofs. Why? So Aten could shine directly down. Clever branding. Even their art changed. Forget stiff, perfect poses. Now it was curves, wrinkles, belly rolls, weird heads. Some statues looked more like biology experiments than pharaohs. This wasn't a mistake, but a style. Human, intimate, raw. Akhenaten and Nefertiti's family scenes were everywhere. They're shown kissing their kids, leaning into each other, eating together. It's almost sweet until you realize it's also a power play. They wanted to be seen as the ideal divine family. Aten's chosen ones, the new holy standard. And Nefertiti? She leaned in hard. She was now Neferutin Nefertiti, Aten's feminine face on earth. In some carvings, she's shown wearing the full pharaoh regalia. The blue war crown, the crook and flail, the ceremonial beard. She's not just praying to the sun. She is the sun, or close enough. Egypt didn't get a say. The god swap wasn't a vote. It was a royal order. Aten in, everyone else out. And the woman enforcing it? She wasn't hiding behind her husband. She was leading the damn cult, the city they built from scratch. The old capital, Thebes, had temples for every god. So Akhenaten did the logical thing. He left. Packed up the court, abandoned centuries of tradition, and started over in the middle of nowhere. Welcome to Akhenaten, a brand new city for a brand new god. Today, we call it Amarna. Back then, it was a sacred flex. Built fast, carved into cliffs, loaded with palaces, open-air altars, and sun-drenched courtyards. It wasn't just urban planning. It was propaganda in limestone. Aten's light hit everything. And in the middle of it all, Nefertiti. She didn't just move in. She co-founded the city. Her name is carved into boundary stelae around the outskirts, legal markers that claimed the land for the royal cult. That wasn't ceremonial, that was administrative. Only kings did that. But here she was, laying down divine real estate law. Amarna was designed to erase the past. No temples to Amun. No shrines to old dynasties. Just Aten, Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and their 6 daughters in every scene. The city had its own rules, its own style, and its own religious system, and Nefertiti wasn't in the background. She was in every official building, every carved wall, every ritual scene. She had her own palace, not a side room, a full complex. Excavations at Amarna uncovered massive columns, painted reliefs, and luxury materials linked to her residence. Scenes show her sitting on a throne, issuing commands, inspecting tribute. Again, that's pharaoh stuff. She didn't wait to be handed power. She built a city where she already had it. And the public art? Nefertiti is all over it. Her images are as frequent and sometimes more detailed than Akhenaten's. She's not just smiling beside him. She's in action, standing tall, clubbing enemies, or making offerings directly to Aten without him present. That's not accidental. That's a message. This city was more than a religious hub. It was a stage. Every street, statue, and shrine said the same thing. Aten rules, and so do we. The power behind the paint. Nefertiti didn't just show up in the artwork. She took over the medium. At Amarna, propaganda got personal. Forget timeless statues of gods and pharaohs with chiseled abs. This era gave us crooked bellies, squinting eyes, elongated skulls, and one queen who practically photobombed history. The Amarna art style was a full break from the old rules. It was awkward, alien, and shockingly honest. You see Nefertiti mid-movement, twisting sideways, kissing her daughters, even scolding one. This wasn't royal fluff. It was deliberate storytelling. And it told everyone exactly who was in charge. Wall after wall shows Nefertiti nearly identical in size and posture to Akhenaten. No shrinking violet, no silent shadow. She's shown in royal processions, religious ceremonies, state functions, and battle scenes. One relief even has her smashing an enemy's head with a mace, a pose previously reserved for kings. That wasn't symbolism. That was policy. She's also seen riding a chariot, flanked by servants, decked out in full Atenist regalia. Her crown, the tall blue flat top, was exclusive. It didn't copy any previous queen's look. It became her personal brand. And when Egyptian artists start treating your face like a logo, you're not just famous, you're political. Which brings us to that bust. In 1912, a German team led by Ludwig Borchardt found the now iconic painted limestone bust in the studio of sculptor Thutmose at Amarna. The piece is nearly 3,400 years old. It shows Nefertiti with a long neck, high cheekbones, and a calm, regal gaze. But here's the kicker, it was never finished. The left eye is missing, not damaged, just never completed. Even unfinished, it's one of the most reproduced faces in the world. Museums, posters, stamps, fake Instagram filters, you name it. But this wasn't just ancient glamour, it was propaganda. That bust was a model. Artists probably used it to copy her face onto official art. Think mass production, 1300 BCE style. In her time, Nefertiti's image was everywhere, because her power was everywhere. Egypt wasn't just seeing a queen, it was seeing a ruler who controlled the message, the media, and the myth. And no one else in ancient Egypt, not even Cleopatra, had that kind of art direction. Co-regent, or pharaoh. Somewhere around year 12 of Akhenaten's reign, the power balance got weird. Nefertiti, already queen, priestess, goddess, and co-ruler in everything but name, suddenly started showing up with the symbols of a pharaoh. Crook and flail? Yep. Blue war crown? Still got it. Full-scale statues with no husband in sight? That too. Egypt had a word for this kind of move. Co-regency. It meant ruling side by side, officially. And Nefertiti was likely elevated to that position under the name Neferutin, a title used in inscriptions from the final years of Akhenaten's rule. But the problem? The records are a mess. Names were chiseled over, erased, swapped. Royal cartouches, name rings, were altered mid-reign. It's like ancient Egypt hit a political panic button. One theory says Nefertiti became pharaoh in all but name, sharing the throne, issuing orders, maybe even taking the lead, while Akhenaten became more isolated, strange, and possibly sick. Other scholars argue she was Pharaoh Neferutin and ruled outright after his death. Either way, she didn't fade. She stepped up. In some inscriptions from the tomb of the official Medide II, Nefertiti is shown with the full regalia of kingship, not just as queen. She's offering to Aten alone, speaking for the throne, and participating in rituals normally reserved for pharaohs. Akhenaten isn't even in the scene. Even royal tombs were adjusted. In the royal tomb at Amarna, scenes depict Nefertiti in mourning over one of her daughters, but the quality of her figure, her placement, and the prominence suggest she was no side character. She might have been in charge of preparing burials, organizing ceremonies, even planning the next succession. That wasn't wife work, that was executive leadership. There's also a letter, called the Dakamunzu letter, sent to the Hittites after a king's death, begging for a royal husband to marry a widowed Egyptian queen who had no son to rule. Many think that queen was Nefertiti. If true, it shows she was holding the throne herself and needed a king only for optics. The vanishing act. Then, she was gone. No funeral, no tomb, no records of her death. Nefertiti, one of the most powerful women in Egyptian history, simply vanished. Around year 14 of Akhenaten's reign, her name stopped showing up. No explanation. In a civilization that documented everything, grain counts, cat burials, toenail offerings, the disappearance of a ruling queen is loud. Especially one who had just been promoted to co-regent or possibly pharaoh. Some scholars say she died. Others think she changed names and kept ruling. A few even suggest she got erased, on purpose. Amarna was already unstable. Egypt's economy was shaking, the priesthood hated the new religion, and foreign relations were going downhill. Plague may have been spreading. One of her daughters, Meketaten, had recently died. Wall scenes in the royal tomb show Nefertiti mourning. That's her last confirmed appearance. After that, confusion. A ruler named Anket Keperur Neferutin shows up in inscriptions. Some say that's still Nefertiti, rebranded, upgraded, and now fully acting as pharaoh. Others think it was her daughter Meritaten, or someone else entirely. The names are similar, the records are scrambled, and later kings had no interest in clearing things up. Akhenaten dies around year 17. Suddenly, Atenism collapses. The old gods come roaring back. Temples are reopened. Amarna is abandoned. And Nefertiti's memory? Mostly scrubbed. Her images get defaced. Names chipped out. Statues destroyed or reburied. Some of her cartouches were overwritten with those of Tutankhamun or his successors. What used to be a massive public display of her rule was now political evidence, and it had to go. No mummy has ever been confirmed as hers. Not in Amarna. Not in the Valley of the Kings. Some speculate she was buried in KV 55 or KV 35. Others think she was meant to share a tomb with Akhenaten, but plans changed during the regime switch. Whatever the reason, her body's still missing. So is her sarcophagus, and if she ever had a gold mask, it's long gone. For someone who dominated Egypt's religion, politics, art, and royal image, Nefertiti left behind zero closure. And somehow, Egypt's most visible queen became its biggest mystery. How do you erase a woman who ruled the sun? Enter Tutankhamun. After Akhenaten died, Egypt slammed the brakes on everything he built. Aten? Cancelled. Amarna? Abandoned. And into this political dumpster fire walked a kid with a royal name and no experience. Tutankhaten. He was about 9 years old. And yes, that's before he became the King Tut you've heard of. Tutankhaten was probably Akhenaten's son, but not Nefertiti's. His mother is believed to be one of Akhenaten's sisters, maybe the so-called younger lady mummy found in KV 35. That made things awkward. The religious experiment was dead, but the heir was still tied to it by name. Who cleaned that up? Hard to say, but some believe Nefertiti, if still alive, was calling the shots. If she was ruling under the name Neferuiten, she may have been the one who placed Tut on the throne as her successor or puppet. Others argue she was already gone, and court officials like Ai and Horemheb moved in fast to control the kid. Either way, the first thing Tut did was change his name to Tutankhamen, ditching Aten for Amun. That wasn't subtle. It was a public execution of his father's legacy. Statues of Akhenaten and Nefertiti were smashed. Temples were looted. Their sun-soaked capital became an empty ruin in the desert. But here's the kicker. While they were undoing everything, they still reused her stuff. Artifacts with Nefertiti's cartouches were scraped off and reinscribed with Tut's name. Tomb objects were repurposed. Some even think Tut's famous golden mask might have originally been made for her. The ears have no piercings. Unusual for a boy, standard for a queen. And the power vacuum? It was real. Tut was too young to rule alone. Nefertiti may have held the reins if she was alive, or left behind a playbook. Either way, someone was steering Egypt back to tradition with surgical precision. In just a few years, Aten was erased, the temples were repainted, and every public trace of Nefertiti's rule went underground. The kid got the throne. The court got control. And Nefertiti? If she was alive, she watched her revolution buried in real time. If she was dead, they used her legacy like a storage unit, cleared it out, and slapped on a new name. The tomb that wasn't hers. Or was it? Nefertiti ruled Egypt, helped launch a new religion, built a city, maybe ruled as pharaoh, and yet, to this day, no one can find her tomb, no confirmed mummy, no sarcophagus, not even a broken label saying, "Here lies Nefertiti." Nothing. This is where the story jumps from ancient mystery to modern obsession. In 2015, Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves dropped a bomb. He claimed Nefertiti might be buried behind a secret wall in King Tut's tomb, KV 62. That's the same tomb famously packed with gold, chariots, daggers, and one very awkward golden mask. Reeves studied high-resolution scans of Tut's burial chamber and spotted what looked like sealed doorways, covered over with plaster and paint. He believed the tomb was originally built for Nefertiti. Then Tut died young, and they just expanded her tomb to squeeze him in. Basically, he crashed her funeral. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities got excited. Ground-penetrating radar scans were done. Some tests showed anomalies. Other scans said, nope, just natural rock. Everyone had an opinion, but no one could agree. As of now, no doors have been opened, no mummies found. The theory remains possible. Then there's KV 35, the tomb where the mysterious younger lady mummy was discovered. DNA tests confirmed she's Tutankhamun's mother. That rules out Nefertiti, unless she was his stepmother only. Some thought the body might have belonged to Kia, Akhenaten's lesser-known wife. Others still think it could be one of Nefertiti's daughters. Search teams have been poking around the Valley of the Kings for years, hoping for a sealed door or radar blip, but follow-up scans near KV 62 in 2016 and 2018 turned up nothing. The big theory about Nefertiti hiding behind Tutankhamun's wall? Still just that, a theory. It's the biggest game of historical hide-and-seek in archaeology. Nefertiti changed the entire empire, and somehow got erased so well, 3,300 years later we're still checking behind Tut's wallpaper for her. That bust you think you know. You've seen her face. Everyone has. Sharp cheekbones, long neck, calm expression, that perfect blue crown. It's the most famous image of Nefertiti, and maybe of all ancient Egypt. But here's the twist. That bust wasn't even meant to be seen. In 1912, a German team, led by Ludwig Borchardt, was digging through the ruined workshop of a sculptor named Thutmose at Amarna. Among the rubble, a painted limestone bust of Nefertiti. No inscriptions. One missing eye. No royal tomb, just her face, sitting on a dusty shelf for over 3,000 years. It wasn't a statue. It was a model, likely used to teach apprentices or serve as a template for other artworks. That's why it's unfinished. The left eye socket is empty. No damage, just never completed. Ancient X-rays even show a sculpted core under the plaster that softens her features. It's like Photoshop in stone. Still, the bust nailed the branding. Her high blue crown wasn't just for style. That's a flat-topped war crown, a symbol of ruling power. The colors, the angles, the perfectly symmetrical face, all propaganda. This wasn't a portrait. It was a political icon. And it worked. Germany took the bust back to Berlin in 1913. But instead of announcing it, Borchardt hid it. He downplayed it in official reports, even showed the Egyptian Antiquities Office a blurry photo to avoid suspicion. The bust wasn't displayed publicly until 1924. By then, it was too late. Nefertiti had become Germany's Egyptian celebrity. Egypt has asked for it back multiple times. Germany said no. Technically, the bust was removed under legal terms of the time, but let's be honest, it was a look over here while I take this situation. Even now, the bust sits in the Neues Museum in Berlin, under heavy glass and hotter controversy. And somehow, this forgotten art school project became the face of a woman who technically has no confirmed tomb, body, or burial mask. No royal inscription claiming her as pharaoh. Just this head, perfect, famous, and totally silent. So, that bust you think you know? It's just the surface. The real Nefertiti? Still hidden, still unsolved, and somehow, still running the show from 3,300 years away.